This is the Y'all Show, talk with a Southern accent. And right now, if you're a college basketball fan, it's like Christmas, especially if you're an ACC basketball fan, because this week in Greensboro, it's the ACC tournament. And to help us understand what's going on there this week, we welcome in our ACC insider from 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports Digital, Jonathan Leifheit. He's into the program. And Jonathan, this ACC tournament kind of got going a little early because you got so many teams, and we know some results from Tuesday evening. The Pitt Panthers defeated Wake Forest 81-72, and UNC, a rare win for them, as Coach Williams' boys got a 78-56 thumping over the Hokies of Virginia Tech. And we'll go through the whole tournament, but I guess based on the fact we've got some actual results in the can, Jonathan, what did you think about both the win by UNC and what Pitt did over Wake Forest?
Well, I mean, we talked about North Carolina last week and how they kind of getting some of their players back, and some of the younger players are starting to pick it up. So it wasn't a big surprise. I believe they have UVA in the second round, and I believe they're going to give UVA probably all they're going to handle, kind of coming in. So this is going to be actually, I guess they moved to a different round and then UVA, but nonetheless. It's going to be all that they can handle. They're going to give everybody a lot this tournament. I think they're a team that's starting to peak at the right time. And then with Pitt winning, kind of a mild. I wouldn't say it was kind of an ups. I would kind of expected that to happen, so not a big deal on that one.
All right. And with these wins Tuesday, advancing to today's lineup in the ACC tournament in Greensboro, you have Clemson, which kind of fell apart at the end of the season. They actually lost a home game to a team not in this ACC tournament. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are sort of out of this thing as they're sort of having a self-enforced probation period going on. Clemson will be taking on Miami in the early game here on this second day now of the ACC tournament in Greensboro. The Pitt Panthers, after their win Tuesday, advanced to play NC State in what's called Game 4 of the ACC tournament. Notre Dame and Boston College have a battle of old Big East rivals there. That's going on this evening in Greensboro. And then the late game on the second day, the Syracuse Orange take on those North Carolina Tar Heels in the ACC tournament. Teams that haven't played yet and are not going to play until the quarterfinals portion of the ACC tournament. You got Duke. You also have Virginia, Louisville, and Jonathan, the number one seed headed into Greensboro this week, the Florida State Seminoles, your ACC regular season champs.
Yeah, they did. I believe they actually cut down the nets for Leonard Hamilton over that one. So that was a really impressive season that they've had. Hamilton has just done a fantastic job down there. Really quiet. Doesn't seem to get a lot of notoriety for it, not a lot of publicity, but he's really put that program on the map and done a fantastic job.
Jonathan, growing up in the mid-'80s like I did, and early '80s also, it seems like a million years ago, but I remember the old Leon County Civic Center games when Florida State was a member of the Metro Conference, which I think Georgia Tech was in that briefly at one point. And here Georgia Tech has taken that role from a Metro Conference forgotten about team, because in those days the Memphis State Tigers and Louisville were the dominant teams in that conference. All these years later, they've gone from the Metro Conference to the champs of the ACC, the first regular season title, by the way, in FSU history. This is at a football school, Jonathan.
That it is, but lately they haven't been doing too good at football, so maybe they're trying to make up for it. But as I mentioned, they've really done a good job of being patient. Leonard Hamilton's taken a few years to kind of get it rolling down there, but he has done a really fantastic job.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan, a lot of people have, beyond what happens in Greensboro this weekend, what's going to happen on Sunday, Selection Sunday, with March Madness, and looking at the last four in, first four out projections right now from an ACC standpoint, according to your friends there at CBS Sports and CBSSports.com, none of the ACC teams are listed currently as the last four in. As far as the first four out, unfortunately for fans in Raleigh, according to CBS Sports, they've got the Wolfpack as one of your first four teams out. How many teams realistically do you see, Jonathan Leifheit of 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports Digital, from the ACC punching their March Madness ticket?
Well, I think there'll definitely be four. And I think probably NC State, it's really just going to depend on kind of how some of these conference tournaments go. And if you're a Wolfpack fan, you got to be pulling for very few upsets, particularly in what I'll call some of the better mid-major conferences, because every time one of those guys, kind of gets an upset in the tournament that they have, that's going to potentially push one more, maybe the regular season champ, if they have a really good team, might end up getting an at-large, and that'll push them down the pecking order just a little bit. So if you're an NC State fan, you're going, no upsets, just give me all the favorites to win all those smaller conferences.
We're visiting with Jonathan Leifheit, our ACC insider, publisher of GoJackets.com, and also he's with CBS Sports Digital and 247sports.com, and this is the Y'all Show, our ACC Spotlight. Jonathan, we got to give the ladies some credit, although they get a couple days breather. They don't have their postseason begin until next week, but we got to give Louisville, the champions of the ACC regular season for women's basketball, as they won that regular season with a 16-2 mark. And then in the ACC tournament, which was held this past weekend, also in Greensboro, North Carolina, that same program out of Tallahassee, Florida State, went in there and played in the championship game. But for the first time since the early 90s, the battling K9s out of Raleigh, Jonathan, the NC State Lady Wolfpack, they won the ACC tournament.
Yeah, that they did. They've had a really, really good season and done a fantastic job up there, and they certainly certainly did deserve it.
And NC State certainly moving on as they're in the top 10 of women's college basketball. Louisville also ranked FSU in the top 25. And just, I know you may not have this in front of you, if you had to guess how many ACC women's programs are going to get their dancing shoes.
Well, I think it's going to be 5, and then you've got kind of number 6 is kind of right there on the cusp with Georgia Tech. They might find a way to get in there. This is another case where going to have to look around and see how many upsets happen, but they're on the edge, but I'm not sure that they're going to make it. It's going to be kind of close.
All right, Jonathan. Let's talk a little college football, if you don't mind. That's not something you're too embarrassed to talk about, right?
No, I'm fine talking about it all day long.
All right, well, let's talk about a big change here. A guy named Drake May, who was committed to a team called the Alabama Crimson Tide, he's flipped his commitment. He's a ESPN 300 quarterback prospect, Drake May, and the 45th ranked prospect overall in next year's class, 2021. And he's in the state of North Carolina. He's decided to flip his commitment from Alabama to the capstone of the Tar Heel State. The University of North Carolina is his latest change. And, of course, this is a whole year away with this youngster. We see this happen sometimes, but not often do you see an Alabama commit decide to go to the Tar Heels.
Well, you're right. It's not often, but when it does happen, it's usually because his older brother played at UNC, as did his father.
Well, that would make a lot of sense. So what in the world he did? What was he thinking when he committed to Nick Saban to start with, Jonathan?
I'm not really sure what he was thinking, but
maybe he wasn't.
But, yeah, he may not have been. It's going to be real interesting because North Carolina has a returning freshman quarterback, and so it's not like he's likely at this point to see any playing time early on. But maybe he just doesn't care and is going to go for it anyway. So. I thought it was an interesting move given that they have Sam Howell coming back.
And Jonathan, it's been a few months now, so I'm going off my memory, but UNC's freshman phenom last year, was it Sam?
That's what I said, Sam Howell.
Okay, all right. I had a car key in my ear thanks to Jeff Foxworthy. Sam Howell, that's right, who was an in-state product also, who, remember, he committed to Florida State and then backtracked and ended up there with Mac Brown in a fantastic – we can't underestimate UNC – was not expected to do anything in 2019, and it started with a big win in Charlotte against that team from south of the border, the Gamecocks, and they kept getting enough wins to go to a bowl, and then they won their bowl game, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, they definitely overachieved relative to expectations last year, and Mac Brown certainly found the right buttons to push and brought in the right staff.
And Mac Brown, obviously a pretty good recruiter, and Jonathan, your website, 247sports.com, is all over the recruiting scene. And when we look at 2021, right now, according to your website, Ohio State is currently sitting at number 1 in the 2021 recruiting class. Florida's at 2, but how about the Clemson Tigers? They're at 3. That's no surprise. But that same Tar Heel bunch I was just bragging on, UNC right now with 9 commits in the 2021 class. Florida's at 6, and I don't see any other ACC teams in.
Miami should be right up there at 5.
Okay, did I? Miami is 6. I think I may have said that.
Okay.
Okay, but
Okay.
still pretty good to have that many teams besides Clemson bouncing there in the top 5, top 10 of the recruiting rankings.
Yep, I believe 3 of the top 6 are ACC teams right now.
All right, so wonderful news for the future of ACC football. Jonathan, spring football is here. We've got some teams already practicing. I'm not sure if any of them have already had their spring game, but let me run through the list of when teams are going to have their spring game in ACC football. It starts April 4th for the BC Eagles as they have a game there at Chestnut Hill. That will be televised on the ACC network. ACC network televising a lot of these spring games. Clemson's going to have their spring game on that same day, April 4th, there from Memorial Stadium in Clemson. On the 18th of April, the weekend after Easter, the FSU Seminoles and Mike Norvell, their new coach, will get together for their first spring game. The Louisville Cardinals are expected to have their spring game March 28th, and that determines where you might be able to tune in and see that. NC State's going to have their spring game April 4th, Syracuse April 18th, Wake Forest April 4th. Duke will have their spring game, the Fighting Cutcliffes, April 4th there. That's a busy day for spring games, Jonathan.
It is.
Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets on Good Friday. It'll be a good day to be in the white and gold as Jeff Collins' ball club will have their spring game on a Friday, as that's been a recent tradition there with fireworks and such in downtown Atlanta. Friday, April 10th, Georgia Tech's spring game. Miami will have theirs April 11th, UNC April 18th, Pitt April 11th, the Virginia Cavaliers on the 18th of April, and the Virginia Tech Hokies on the 18th of April as well. Again, ACC Network's televising a lot of these spring games. Some of them may be a digital-only component, but it is something for us. If you like football, spring football is better than nothing, and that's here. Coming up here in a couple weeks when you have your first one. Jonathan, there was a recent article out by your peers there at CBSSports.com about the drop in attendance in FBS football games. I didn't know if you had a chance to see Dennis Dodd's article, but your thoughts on that, and did you see that happening in the ACC in 2019?
Well, we did. I mean, attendance was down. I think it was right at 1%, just kind of keeping up with the trend across all of football. And it's just really become kind of an issue of game day experience, and they're going to have to find ways to get folks more involved. And, they mentioned, some of the younger generation, demanding and wanting Wi-Fi, that type of thing, so that they can, basically stay glued to their phones during the game. But that's definitely kind of, it's turning into a pretty big issue. I think the last time attendance was this low was 1996. So that, it's been a long time. It'd been going up, and now it's been kind of dipping back down for the last decade.
All right, well, moving on to the great sport of college baseball. This is the Y'all Show. John Rawl joined by Jonathan Leifheit here at y'all.com. The Y'all Show, the show that's all about the South. Y'all.com, the ultimate guide to the South, where make sure if you're a college baseball fan, we have our college baseball barrister, Matt Hiermans, each week joining us here on the Y'all Show to talk about it. And you can go to our YouTube channel, Y'all Show, and watch our college baseball preview each week now going through Omaha. But in the ACC here coming up this week, we want to let everybody know that the Miami Hurricanes were successful in their opening weekend of ACC baseball. They, along with Notre Dame and Clemson, all swept their contests from that opening weekend of conference play, and teams right there at the top of the standings right now from the ACC, led by Louisville. Louisville off to a wonderful start. Jonathan, this weekend we've got the second weekend of college baseball in the ACC v. ACC action. North Carolina and Duke have their rivalry on the diamond this weekend. Notre Dame will be visiting the Louisville Cardinals, ranked number 2 in the land. NC State's number 11, and they've got BC coming in. NC State lost their series at the Hoos last weekend. The number 7 Hurricanes will be flying up to Virginia Tech, where they've got a series there in Blacksburg. The Pitt Panthers welcome in number 25 Virginia. Clemson, ranked number 24 in the land, they'll be at Wake Forest this weekend. And Georgia Tech, Danny Hall's ball club, goes down to Tallahassee, where Martin Jr., I guess, is he Mike Martin Jr., or the longtime coach's son is now the head of the Seminole baseball program?
I think so.
Okay. The Noles ranked in the top 20, and they've got the Jackets coming in for an ACC series. And, of course, we'll be right here next week on the Y'all Show to break it all down and have our buddy Jonathan Leifheit back on to talk about what happened with the ACC tournament and all the teams in the ACC that will be advancing to March Madness. Jonathan, thank you so much for all your ACC knowledge.
Thanks a lot, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy all the basketball.
Yes, we will, Mr. Leifheit. Well, that will wrap up this first hour of the Y'all Show. You stay there. We've got more coming up in hour 2. We have Precious Harris with country music news and more, and hashtag Hullabaloo's coming your way too. All that right here on the Y'all Show, y'all.